but if you're here watching in for the first time, great. Glad to have you here. Today, September 10th, we are preparing for the next presidential debate. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, they go at it. It is going to be like one of those great Dana White UFC fights. I think so. What do you think, Alex?
Is it at the Sphere? Is it being held?
I mean, it should be. If they really understood the capability of what could happen, absolutely. Let's block out the Sphere. Let's go there. I read this morning.
Yeah, tell me. I got to hear it.
Well, I've known this, that Trump has been sparring, as they say it, with Tulsi Gabbard, preparing for this event, getting ready. And then I read something this morning about how Kamala and her camp have been doing much the same. They have an entire studio to match what they're going into, and they're preparing the handshakes to all of the different things. It'd be very interesting to watch how scripted everything is, meaning, remember watch some of those Saturday Night Live skits where, they're on a talk show and they ask a question and the respondent, the guest, answers, and it's totally not even anything they asked. They just totally went off on a tangent. I kind of expect that tonight. That's what I picked up and heard.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Well, it's gonna be must watch TV, must see TV, to be, to use that to the NBC line, right? The must see TV. It's going to be that because it's who composes themselves. And if Kamala goes off the rails, how bad does it go for her? Because she has overwhelmingly, in all of the videos and the memes and the clips, there are too many of them to not expect it to happen. When she is sharp and she's got it memorized, dude, she's as cool as a cucumber. And when she has to, like, off the cuff, she is like a babbling 3-year-old.
Well, it's going to be...
you have one, so you know what a 3-year-old
I have a babbling 3-year-old. If it's anything like that, it's going to be insane. He's got so much energy. But, you made me laugh because I think we should make it more like a spectacle, like a UFC event.
They used to have, like,
have a belt. There's
there's
like
for people.
Music.
Remember in college, you used to play drinking games.
Yeah,
there are people that are going to, engage in that type of activity for tonight. I just, when you look at those, do you ring a bell each time, one of the cast of comedic characters does something? Because at this point, to me, they are both comedic characters. Plain and simple. It is what it is. That's my viewpoint.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. But the focus of today was an article that you had sent me, which I thought was really interesting. And we'll take it into it. But this is what it said. 40% of workers aged 18 to 34 are willing to quit their job over political differences with their boss. I'm like
60%. In the same article, it says the survey also revealed 60% of workers would prefer to work for an organization whose CEO shares similar political views.
I mean,
54% admitted feeling uncomfortable discussing politics at work,
which is fine. I don't think you need to discuss politics at work. I don't think that's necessary.
Here's the good one. I mean, there's some more here. 29% of respondents have faced harassment or discrimination at work due to their political beliefs, and 39% feel pressured to conform to a particular political viewpoint.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, like, working in news, I worked at ABC, I worked at NBC, I worked at the Huffington Post. In the 16? Donald Trump?
When Trump won?
When Trump won?
Yeah.
I was working at Huffington Post, which was very left. And I am not a political person. Like, I'm not a Republican.
Which is funny now, because in one of the recent articles that we went through, they were described as being pretty far right now. That's what it was described.
Not the case when I worked there.
I just that hit me. They were one of the 6 or 7 news agencies that are projected to be on the right.
Right.
Well, no,
That's
no, no.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway, when I was there, they were extremely left, which is
okay.
whatever. And
It is what it is.
I'm not, it is what it is. So I remember going to work that day and literally people were
Election day?
crying. Post-election day, Trump won.
Post-election. It just happened to be
Post-election
someday.
day, Trump had won. And I just kind of was like, all right, that's what it is. And I got to go to work and I got a bunch of stuff I got to do. But there's people crying and holding each other and this and talking about it publicly. Oh, it's all open. Nothing's like private. It's all open. And I will say, like, it's not that I voted for him or anything like that. It was just kind of like, what the hell is happening here? Like, this isn't the end of the world. Like, it's just, dude is the president, and that's kind of the way it is. Don't we all have to job to perform? And it was so public. Like, I wouldn't say I conformed to the environment, but I didn't like voice an opinion like, hey guys, wake up, like we got to work, who cares? It was more like I was just like, all right, I'll stay. I understand you're going through something.
I'm trying to think as you're saying that, because I remember that. And that's when all of the not my president stuff came out, right? Not my president. And we've had that now the last 7-8 years. Not my president, right? My president, it's I remember seeing a bumper sticker yesterday on a truck and there's Trump is my president. It's like, okay, whatever, great. That if you want to have that, that's fine. That's awesome.
It's so
but
great.
It when I think back in, I've been voting for, I don't know how many years now, but the extent that I don't remember that when Bush ran against, Gore. I don't remember that when, Mitt Romney ran against Obama. And it was maybe some point during that generation of Obama being president where people are like, not my president, where it became so vile about accepting the president or not. And I'm just trying to think, and I want to reflect and say, do you remember when that context of, appreciating the president as a position and not a identifier of your personal values and beliefs?
Yeah, I think, kind of going back, just, I'm 30, I'll be 37 here this year. So I remember like the Clinton era very well, obviously George W. Bush and that era. And I always remember, like, I remember the, excuse me. I remember with Clinton specifically, obviously around the scandal, but I didn't remembering it to be like, so this side or that side. And maybe that could have been like, maybe the start
Our
of it.
age.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at figures today, it doesn't matter what generation you're in. You're like very adamant about, I accept this president or not.
Right. Yeah.
The comments the last 8 years, if they become president, I'm going to Canada. Like, really? Go ask the Canadians how much they enjoy their political sphere right now, and you'll want to stay here.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, whoever was president or whoever my boss was at a particular place, and whatever they chose to do or who they chose to support never affected me. I was like, okay, you support Trump, go do your thing. You support Obama, great. Okay, I got a job. You paid me good money to do this job. That's why I'm here. It doesn't affect me emotionally, psychologically, or anything. I never felt.
But now we're at the point where people willing to quit their job.
Right. I think that's insane. I just think it goes back to just like toughness, right? I have young kids, and
yes.
It's like, you will let someone else affect you so much because of how they feel or think about something else that you will leave that. Like, that to me, it's not strong. That's not strength to me. Like, and all those different emotions. Like, you can't let other people's opinions or thoughts about anything impact you. You can process it, digest it, understand it, but at the end of the day, you have something to perform that day. You have something to execute that day. You have something to do. Sorry, I'm still getting over
which I only think we get to the point of, what's going to bring us back together? What's going to change this accord where we're going to have more willingness to appreciate diversity, meaning diverse thought, not the way you look, not and embrace it, to understand that we may look the same, skin color, race, male, female, but we can have completely different experiences, and by that, preferences politically, and that's okay. And the idea of lumping everyone together, for example, if you are a white male, you have to have this viewpoint, or if you're a minority of any different race, of male or female, you have to have this viewpoint. And it's just like, why did that ever become the dictator of it? That there's so many more factors, whether it's been, are you an entrepreneur? Are you what have you looked and done? Have you traveled the world? When you start looking at those things, man, that overwhelmingly impacts the viewpoint of people more so than a specific gender or race. And yet everyone wants to hold on to the gender or race factor, and where you should or shouldn't vote for a candidate.
Well, Tyler, why are these young people 18 to 34, and I'm guessing a lot of them are probably 18 in their 20s, quitting because, like, why do you, I no, like, what do you think? Like,
thanks for the mathematical statistics. Most of them are in their 20s.
Well, I would say probably less are in their late 34 that like feel this way. I want to say it skews into that younger range within that demographic. Okay, I guess that's what I'm. That's what I meant by it. Is that I'm guessing a majority of them skew a little younger in this. But why are young people quitting over something like this? Like, why? Like, what do you think? Like,
I think I think it's lack of experience in what they're seeing, whether it's through different media agencies or, it's long been held. For example, yesterday I did a podcast with a previous guest, Gil Winch. Gil is an Israeli. He lives in Israel, and he was explaining to me what's going on in Israel. And one of the things that he shared, and he shared this, he was educated in the U.S., was born in the U.S., but lives in Israel. His family is Jewish, whatever. And it was talking about the gross the ignorance of protesters to real situations. And we saw this in the spring with so many different college campuses being overrun with protesters that were protesting for different, whether it's Israeli or Palestinian, you had both of it, and people not understanding the circumstance. And it is I'm going to grasp a hold of a movement because it seems cool or that seems appropriate, but I don't understand everything. I'm just going to state a fact. I'm just going to state an opinion, borderline opinion, but there's a factual basis to it. Is when people are, promoting and standing up for Palestinian extreme Muslim rule. And it's not all Palestinians, I understand that, but extreme, like radical Muslims, and they are homosexuals. They are very misaligned. I mean, this is a society that banishes, that executes, that publicly beheads people that acknowledge that they are homosexual. And so when you have groups that are embracing them, stand up for the radical Islam, is like, you don't get it. You don't understand. And that's what he was talking a little bit about. It's like just the atrocity that's happening in a lot of places that is perpetuated. And let me share this context for you. Okay. And I had this firsthand when I went to Israel 4 years ago. Just over 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And on that trip, we happened to be privileged to sit down with a reporter who had been within journalism for 27 years. So now 30 some years in Israel. And he shared this fact with us, shared this with the entire group, said, having worked in this region and having worked for major news agencies, just like you mentioned before, and he worked now for a newspaper, he would often be asked for, hey, what stories do you have? Many journalists, right? If you're a freelance journalist, whatever, working with an agency, your job is to find articles, to find stories, and then kind of package them and you give them to whichever agency. And he would often be asked like, hey, do you have anything for us? And he verbatim from his words said, yes, There was a incident where 4 people were walked out into the street and beheaded yesterday. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, how many of them were Jews? And he goes, none. It was all Palestinians. They're like, oh, we don't, that story doesn't get clicks. We don't want that.
Right.
And again, that's the perspective that I know from having been there and like being here in the US to understand we have no idea what's really going on. So tying this all back to the different groups, I think it's driven by this ideological, perpetuation of something that's not reality. And I think that's what comes back to the statement I mentioned earlier is the more that we experience different cultures,
Right.
different places in the world, even different cultures within our United States, we start to have a greater appreciation for, oh, it's not really like I thought it was.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think if you're one of these young people who may be affected by something like this, to go travel the world a little bit and go out of your comfort zone and
travel the country,
even the country, go wherever in Texas or Florida or where have you, Tennessee, doesn't
go to
matter.
Nebraska and just see what the world's really like in Nebraska.
Right. And I've been to a lot, almost all the states in this country.
What number are you at?
I'm in the 30s, probably.
Okay.
High 30s.
Okay.
From sports and then from professional career.
Okay.
Just many and just seen and observed and also just spoke to these people and see how they thought and felt and, met a lot of different people. And, it is tough because, going to the article and like talking about conformity, and having a business, I ran a business and founded a business in Los Angeles. I had a lot of employees that leaned left and they would openly talk about, their feelings in the political climate. And, I just listened, I listened, I understood. And but like, I don't know. I never felt like I had to take a side but I would, and they would publicly and openly bash, the right side. And not that I cared, but it was like, how do we know there's not one person here that was, Republican? Maybe they felt like, ostracized, but like it was pretty normal. And I, should I have said something? Maybe it just felt like that was the whole team. And I was the one feeling ostracized.
Like going back, when you think about now what and as we're talking about this, what would you do differently?
I probably would just say, hey, listen, anything political, that we want to bring up, even as a joke, maybe like tongue in cheek things were said. Let's just keep it out. Like there's out of conversation. I would say either we keep it out or like, cause we don't know like who leans on what side. And we could be, maybe, and that person who does feel like they need to be kept silent because the vast majority of the team leans in a particular direction and we're making a joke about whatever, or someone's making a joke and everyone's kind of laughing, may feel uncomfortable. And I probably would have said something to that effect. Because that's just what it was. I mean, it was like 22 people team.
The interesting point I want to jump in here and say the International Business Times article that we're talking about has 3 points that they kind of, suggest to people. One of them is promoting constructive dialogue, which I think is great. Number 2 is setting boundaries, encouraging respect, which you just talked about, and then also implementing long-term strategies. I think, as you think now, how would you handle it? And you're like, hey, just cut it out. Like, we just don't talk about that here. And I can agree with that because a lot of times it's easier to just say, hey, it's a no-fly zone. That doesn't happen here. But I think the place we're in the world today, and I wonder, and again, not having exactly that circumstance today, but it's like not playing devil's advocate because that can get very contrarian, but it's like, hey, appreciate other people, have different experiences and different views, and let's choose to be curious. Hey, why do you have the view you have? Because so often I think we find that people have views and it's really, really, really hard to substantiate why they do. They just have gravitated to it. Okay. Give me a basis in understanding your experience. If you have different views, that's fine. I think I shared with you a rather tenuous, heated conversation I had with a family member. And I was just asking, like, give me your why you have that view. And it became heated when it's like, I don't understand your view, and I'm asking to understand your view. I don't want you to, get upset about it and, rant and rave about it. It's just give me the circumstances where, one, it's possible. Number two, why you have that viewpoint. Because it could be valid. I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know. I have not seen, I do not have documentation, I do not have experience that brings me to the same conclusion. So I'm asking with great clarity and not this emotional laden diatribe why you have that opinion. It wasn't able to be done. And I think that's where it gets difficult is, when, we all know you make decisions based upon emotions, not logic, not reason, not facts. It's all emotional. And I think the way to diffuse emotions and bring in a good dialogue is through curiosity and, the ability to interact and not judge the person based upon their different views, but be fascinated and curious. What experiences, what information give you the perspective that you have? Because I may gain something, or you may gain by my perspective, and that's good for all of us. That's actual diversity in the workplace, which everyone wants, but yet we're going about it, as I said earlier, based upon a race or a gender instead of an experience diversity.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
All right. Anything final before we put a wrap on this and get to watch tonight? And
what's the drinking game that people are playing? What word is it? Like a word they say and repeat over and over? You have to take like a sip or something.
I don't know. I mean, I have not looked into that, but I'd wonder what it's going to be because here's the worst thing. If we come out of it and we're no better off than when we started, we as a country are worse off. But if we can come out of it and something comes out of it, and I'm not justifying one candidate over the other, but if one is able to either separate themselves or answer, because they've done both of them have done a lot of avoiding, we're all going to be better off as a country. And I think that should be the hope and desire, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. From your mouth to God's ears.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching this double episode bonus time, talking a little bit about political impact in the workplace, that 40% of workers are willing to quit their job over political differences with their boss. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. And remember to subscribe on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified. You can also watch each new episode that launches of the Impact Driven Leader podcast with guests each week on Wednesday, wherever you listen to podcasts and here on YouTube. Till next time, have a good one. Choose to lead with impact.